on March 3rd, 1878. Lost Hope Silver Mine, Idaho. Daniel Cooper, 31, worked as a mine surveyor throughout the Northwest Territories. While mapping the lower levels of an abandoned silver mine, he encountered something that caused him to abandon his profession entirely. His written account was found among legal documents related to the mine's permanent closure. And what was in those documents is horrifying. The Lost Hope mine hadn't seen work in 6 months when the company sent me to survey its lower reaches. A new investor wanted to restart operations, but needed proper maps of the deeper tunnels first. I'd mapped dozens of mines before. The work was simple: measure, draw, note any hazards or promising veins. But something felt wrong from the moment I descended past the 3rd level. The air was too still, too heavy. My footsteps echoed strangely as if the tunnels were larger than they appeared. At the 5th level, I noticed the temperature dropping steadily. By the 6th, I could see my breath and my lantern's flame burned low and blue. The final tunnel started like any other. Squared off walls, timber supports every few feet, iron tracks for the ore cars. But as I moved deeper, the worked stone gave way to natural cave walls, smooth and black like polished glass. My light seemed to sink into that blackness, creating odd reflections that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. The cold became intense. My hands shook as I tried to make notes, the pencil scratching across damp pages. That's when I heard it. A sound like someone walking through deep water, coming from the darkness ahead. I raised my lantern and called out to see if anybody was there. The splashing stopped. Then came a different sound, a wet, sliding noise like something heavy being dragged across stone. It was moving toward me. My light caught movement about 30 feet ahead. Something pale shifted in the darkness. At first, I thought it was a cave formation, some kind of mineral deposit. Then it moved again, and I saw what looked like fingers, long, white fingers reaching around the corner of the tunnel. The hand they belonged to was the size of a coal shovel, with too many joints. It gripped the black stone wall, and I heard rock cracking under its strength. Then it pulled, and something began to emerge from around the corner. I wish I could describe what I saw next. My mind seems to shy away from the details, leaving only fragments. A head that was both too large and too small at the same time. Eyes like deep mine shafts. A mouth that opened and kept opening, revealing nothing but darkness inside. It moved like smoke but had the weight of stone. The air around it rippled like heat waves, though the cold was now so intense my teeth were chattering. As it pulled itself fully into view, I saw that its pale form was draped in what looked like rotting miner's clothes, hanging in wet strips from its impossible shape. Then it saw me, those pit-deep eyes fixed on mine, and I felt a hunger older than the mountains themselves. This thing had been here long before the miners came. The silver had drawn it up from whatever lightless depths it called home, and now it was feeding on anyone who ventured too deep. It flowed toward me with terrible purpose, those 2 long fingers reaching, its mouth opening wider than any mouth should. The sound it made, God help me. The sound was like a rock slide in reverse, like all the mountain's weight trying to speak. I ran. I dropped my lantern, but didn't need it. The thing cast its own pale light that turned the tunnel walls to mirror black ice. I could see its reflection all around me as I fled, multiplied in those glassy surfaces, reaching, flowing, hungry. I don't remember most of my escape. I ran until my legs gave out, then crawled until I saw daylight. Behind me, that awful sliding sound grew fainter, but the cold followed me all the way to the surface. They found me half frozen despite the warm March day. My hair had turned white, though I was only 31. The doctors said it was shock or gas exposure, but they didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel that ancient hunger, that cold that went deeper than flesh. The mind maps I was making were never completed. The company sealed the lower levels after 3 more survey teams refused to proceed past that glass-black tunnel. They said the cold was unnatural. They said they heard something moving in the depths, something that followed them back toward the light. I've never gone underground again, but sometimes I dream of that pale shape flowing through darkness, of those endless eyes and that hunger that time cannot satisfy. And I wonder, how many other things like it are down there, waiting in the deep places of the earth? How many mines have we dug into their domains? When I hear about mines being abandoned despite rich ore, about miners vanishing in supposedly stable tunnels, I think about those long fingers reaching around the corner, and I thank God I was fast enough to run. On December 18th, 1891, Blackhawk Mine, Clear Creek County, Colorado Territory. Thomas Randall, age 34, served as a mine safety inspector for the Colorado Territory Mining Commission from 1888 to 1894. In the winter of 1891, while investigating the sudden closure and abandonment of the Blackhawk silver mine, he encountered something that defied explanation. His subsequent report to the territory officers in Denver was sealed and later destroyed in a courthouse fire. While some dismissed Randall's account as the ravings of a man driven mad by dangerous gases or isolation, others noted his previously impeccable reputation and unwavering insistence on what he witnessed. Several search parties refused to enter the deeper tunnels, citing an overwhelming sense of dread and unexplainable physical symptoms. This is Thomas Randall's account, as recorded in his personal journal. The snow was falling heavily when I reached the Blackhawk mine. 3 weeks had passed since the last telegraph from the site supervisor, and the district office was concerned about the sudden silence from what had been one of our most productive silver operations. I tied my horse in the mine stable, noting that the other horses were gone but their tack remained, hanging askew on the walls. The main office was empty, logs and records scattered across the floor as if someone had left in a hurry. A half-drunk cup of coffee sat on the desk, white fuzz of mold floating on its surface. The temperature was well below freezing, but the air coming from the main shaft felt oddly warm and damp. I lit my lantern and checked my equipment: measuring tools, sample bags, gas detector, notebook. Standard procedure was to test for deadly gases first, but the detector showed normal levels, just stale air. The wooden support beams in the main shaft were solid, showing no signs of the collapse reported in the last telegraph. I descended slowly, marking my path with chalk arrows as I went. The first 2 levels were abandoned but intact. Tools lay where they'd been dropped. Lunch pails sat unopened on break room tables. It was on the 3rd level that I first noticed something wrong with the walls. In my 15 years of mining work, I'd seen every kind of rock formation and mineral deposit imaginable, but I'd never seen anything like this. Patches of the tunnel walls seemed wrong. The rock had a glossy sheen, almost wet-looking, though it was dry to the touch. When I held my lantern closer, the surface appeared to have a subtle pattern, like the grain of wood but more organic, almost like... I didn't want to complete that thought. The patches grew larger and more numerous as I descended. By the 4th level, entire sections of the tunnel were covered in this material. It had a faintly purple-grey color, and up close I could see that it wasn't perfectly smooth, but rather covered in tiny ridges and folds, like the surface of a mushroom or some kind of marine creature. The air grew warmer, heavy with an unfamiliar smell, not the usual mine smells of dirt and dynamite and sweat, but something sickeningly sweet, like rotting fruit or spoiled meat. I heard the first scream when I reached the 5th level. It came from below, distant but clear, a human voice crying out in terror or agony. I froze, listening. Silence followed, broken only by the soft plink of water drops. Then another scream, fainter this time, as if the person was moving away. "Hello?" I called out. "This is Thomas Randall from the Mining Commission. Is anybody down there?" My voice echoed back at me, distorted by the tunnels. No response came. I should have turned back then. Every instinct told me to return to the surface and bring help. But those screams... if someone was still alive down there after 3 weeks... The 6th level was where I found the first evidence of what happened to the miners. A boot lay on its side, partially embedded in the strange wall covering. As I moved closer, I saw that the leather was discolored and partially dissolved, as if subjected to powerful acids. Next to it was a pickaxe, its wooden handle similarly degraded. I touched the wall material with my gloved hand. It was warm, and then... God, help me. I felt it pulse. I yanked my hand back, heart pounding. The surface rippled slightly where I'd touched it, like disturbed water settling. A drop of clear fluid beaded up and ran down the wall. Another scream echoed up the shaft, closer this time. It wasn't a cry for help or a shout of fear. It was the kind of scream that comes when pain and terror have stripped away all humanity, leaving only animal desperation. I stumbled backward, bumping into the opposite wall. My lantern swung wildly, sending shadows dancing. In the erratic light, I saw movement in the wall covering, not just ripples, but a slow, purposeful flow like blood moving through veins. The sweet, rotting smell grew stronger, and I realized with horror that it was coming from the walls themselves. They were digesting something. The missing miners' equipment, their clothes, their... I ran. I wish I could say I acted with professional courage, that I investigated further or tried to help whoever was screaming. But in that moment, faced with something that violated every natural law I knew, I fled like a frightened child. My boot slipped on the increasingly organic floor, and I fell hard. The lantern shattered, plunging me into darkness. I scrambled up and ran blind, one hand on the normal rock wall, trying not to touch the other side. The screams followed me, growing louder. They seemed to come from all directions now, echoing through the tunnels, overlapping into a chorus of agony. I don't remember most of my ascent. I was aware only of my ragged breathing, my pounding heart, and those terrible screams that seemed to fill my head until I thought I would go mad. At some point, I realized my ungloved hand was burning where it had brushed against the wall. When I finally reached the surface, my skin was red and blistered, as if I'd grabbed a hot stove. I mounted my horse and rode hard for Denver, not stopping until long after dark. In my report, I recommended the immediate and permanent closure of the Blackhawk mine. I tried to explain what I'd found, but the words seemed inadequate, almost silly on paper. How could I describe something so utterly wrong, so contrary to nature? They sent other inspectors, of course. Some refused to go below the 4th level. Others returned ashen-faced, refusing to speak about what they'd seen. The mine was officially closed in January 1892, the entrance dynamited and sealed. I've never returned to Blackhawk, though I've thought about it many times over the years. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself listening for screams in the distance. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see those living walls, slowly digesting everything they touch, growing deeper and deeper into the earth.